Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to another episode of #EpicBookRecs. So this is the monthly series that I do here on the Epic Reads channel where I recommend a bunch of books based on a certain theme. So today's video I wanted to get ahead of International Women's Day coming in March and tell you about a bunch of books with main characters, main girl characters who I absolutely admire. I've recommended a bunch of these books before, but I cannot help but tell you about them again because I just adore these girls and I just aspire to be like all of them. Alright, so the first book that I want to talk about is I'll Be the One by Eliza Lee. I absolutely loved this book. It is such a pick-me-up of a read and it follows our main character Sky Shin, who wants to become a K-pop star, and she enters this competition in California to become a K-pop star. They're kind of recruiting people in LA, but Sky is kind of facing some difficulties because her mother really doesn't want her to try out for this K-pop show. She thinks that Sky is too fat to be dancing and performing, and Sky wants to break all of these kind of impressions about, plus size girls, and she wants to just be unapologetically herself. And that's the thing that I loved about this book, that Sky is just so determined to just be herself, and that's what just makes her so admirable. So definitely a book to pick up if you're looking for a pick-me-up, if you're looking for something with a little bit of K-pop, and if you're looking for a main character who's just trying her best and is determined to show the world what she's capable of. Alright, the next fantastic female that I'm absolutely in love with is Imani Santiago from With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. So the thing I love about this book is that Imani is a young teen mom and she is kind of taking care of her really young daughter. I think she's about 1 year old, and she is returning to school for her senior year, and she is trying to juggle, being a parent as a teen and, her family obligations with her abuela, and also trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life. She knows she loves cooking, but she doesn't know if that's going to be a viable career path for her since she has to take care of her young child. And this entire book was just a breath of fresh air, and it was just so sweet. And there are so many descriptions of Imani making incredible food that you will just be drooling by the end. But I really did love Imani as a character. She is such a sweet and kind person, really cares about her family, but also really cares about her friends, and is finding herself just wanting to figure out who she is. And I think her struggle to figure out who she is was very relatable. Alright, the next book that I want to talk about has two girls that I absolutely admire in it, and that is Parachutes by Kelly Yang. This is one of my favorite books of 2020, and there are 1,000 reasons why. But this book is a bit of a Me Too book, so it has that aspect to the story, but it follows two different main characters. So we have Claire and we have Danny. So Danny is a Filipina-American girl living in California with her mother, and they're kind of struggling for money, but they both kind of make ends meet by cleaning houses for the wealthy people in their neighborhood. Danny is also a scholarship student, so she goes to this very private school with a lot of, wealthy students and some international students as well. And that's where Claire comes in. She's something called a parachute, which is basically a term for wealthy Asian children who are sent by their wealthy parents to study abroad in America. And so Claire is one of these kids, but she never wanted to leave China. She didn't want to leave her family and her mother, but she's kind of forced to go to America and attend school there. And so she's kind of in this new environment, and she is going to be hosted by Danny's family. So she is living with Danny and her mother, and their dynamic is very different. They don't know how to really deal with each other because their lives up until that point have been very different. But they're attending the same school. Claire is getting in with this new crowd of wealthy kids at the school, and they're both really experiencing things that they never thought they would before, and also in some ways envying each other, even when they should really be working together. And by the end, they really do. This book, by nature of the wealthy kids and the private academy, feels a little bit Gossip Girl, but really the characters all kind of come together and really support each other by the end, which I absolutely loved. And it was a really beautiful representation of two very different girls in very different situations and trying to navigate their young lives. But I really did admire both characters. Danny is very precocious and very hardworking, and she's always trying to do her best. And Claire is trying to, cope with the fact that she's been kind of abandoned in this other country and is trying to do her best and, understand what's going on. But she, makes mistakes, which is one thing that I really loved about her as well. She was very human. Alright, the next book I want to talk about is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. So I really love Eliza in this book. She is this young girl who has this amazing ability for drawing, and without her family really knowing, she has this secret webtoon series that she's created, and it has millions and millions of people around the world who read it and love it and and, you know, she has this whole fan base, but she herself as the author has remained anonymous online. So she has this whole other online life that her family doesn't know about, and she doesn't really know how to talk to them about it, and she also, you know, is dealing with a lot of anxiety and finds it very difficult to open up to people. And the thing that I love about this book is that not only is Eliza just so capable and amazing, like she has this whole fan base and, you know, she's created this beautiful thing that so many people love, but she also has like her own kind of struggles on the other side of that, and you're kind of getting to see both sides. And I also just really love that Eliza is just such a like nerd slash geek, like she loves very fandom-y things, and I really related to that, and I think it was very gratifying to hear her inner thoughts and realize that you're not alone in some of the anxieties that she has. It's, you know, stuff that a lot of people are going through. Alright, the next book that I have is one of my all-time favorites, and that is The 11 Lies of Roxanna Ali by Sabina Khan. I absolutely love this book because of the journey that the main character goes through and how, you know, strong she is amid all of the adversity that she faces. But basically this follows our main character, Roxanna Ali, who is this young Muslim gay teenager. She is lesbian, but her parents do not know about this. Her family does not know. And when one day she kind of gets caught with her girlfriend, her parents, you know, create this kind of plot and whisk her off to Bangladesh to kind of pray the gay away. They're determined to sort of ignore her sexuality, and Roxanna goes through this very painful but also very beautiful process of trying to get her family to understand, you know, who she is as a person and get them to accept her. And it is both a very harrowing story but also a really well done one, and really explores the experience of queer POC people. And I absolutely love it for that reason, and I just really admired Roxanna as a character. She goes through so much in this book, but she perseveres and, you know, still has the emotional bandwidth to continue on, and I just really appreciated that. Alright, the next book that I want to talk about is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is a recent fave of mine, and I absolutely admire the main character, Bree. She's going through some grief at the beginning of the book. Her mother has just died, and she doesn't know the real reason behind the accident and feels that there's something going on there. But Bree is going off to this new kind of pre-college program at a university, and she finds herself kind of getting mixed up in this sort of secret society that is very involved with the Arthurian legends and believes them to be true, and she's starting to discover a bit of magic there as well. And as she starts to learn of them, they're the Legendborn, she starts to realize that they may have something to do with her mother's death. But this is a really incredible story of, you know, Bree, this young girl, trying to figure out what happened to her mother, but also kind of delving into her history and into her past and, you know, the generations of women that have come before her, but also discovering, you know, the power within herself. And Bree is just also really admirable because, you know, although she is very strong in this book and, you know, stands up for herself in a lot of instances, she's also very vulnerable, and you see that at a lot of points, and she just felt so very human, which I really appreciated. But I also just felt like she was a character that I wanted to root for no matter what. Like, I just really wanted to see her succeed. And the girl in the next book is also quite similar to Bree, and that is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. And the girl I admire in this book is, of course, Laia. And Laia is one of my favorite characters in fiction of all time, just because of her resilience and her perseverance and her desire to just continue on even when she feels like she is weak, even when she feels like she doesn't want to go on. You know, she just keeps fighting no matter what, and I just loved that aspect of her personality. Laia starts out in a very difficult place. This is set in a very brutal fantasy world, and at the very beginning of the book she loses a lot of people that she cares about and is trying to save her brother, who has been taken off to a prison in this empire, and she's trying to infiltrate an academy of assassins for the empire that has conquered her own country. And she's doing all this crazy, incredible, and like very dangerous things, but the entire time, you know, she is scared and she is frightened and she doesn't know what to do, and she stumbles a lot and she makes a lot of mistakes, but she is trying nonetheless, and she just goes through so much character growth, I think, over the course of this book and the later books in the series, that she was just so endearing to read about. Alright, and the final book that I want to talk about is The Star-Touched Queen by Roshni Chokshi. So I absolutely love this book. It is a standalone fantasy, if you were curious, and it follows our main character, Maya, who has been given this sort of horoscope when she was very young that she's going to bring like death and destruction upon her family and her kingdom and all of that. And so because of that, her kingdom and her family have kind of shunned her, and when they are given the opportunity to marry her off to a distant kingdom, they sort of jump on it. And so our main character, Maya, is taken off to this mysterious kingdom of Acheron, but she soon finds out that it is actually the kingdom of the dead, and the man that she has married is actually like the king of the dead. This is sort of a Hades and Persephone retelling with Hindu mythology, which I thought was super, super interesting. But what I love about this book is Maya as a character. She starts out very prickly. She, you know, is very mischievous also, and when she gets to the kingdom of the dead, you know, she could have freaked out and she could have, you know, ran away or something, but she sort of takes it in stride, and she's also just a really curious character, and she just wants to learn more about the magic and mysteries going on around her. This book also has an aspect of the Cupid and Psyche myth as well, if any of you know that, but it involves Maya going through a few trials later on in the book, which I thought were super interesting, and seeing her kind of persevere despite the many challenges that she faces was just so cool. Alright, but those are all of the books that I wanted to recommend today. I absolutely love all of the characters in these books. They're just so inspiring and so admirable, and they're all so very human, and I think there's so many aspects of each of their characters that I love and want to emulate. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what girl characters you admire in the description down below and what books they're from. I would love to get your recommendations of just some fantastic females that are admirable. But that's all I have. I'm Jananie from the channel The Story Ain't Over, and I will see you in the next episode of #EpicBookRanks. Bye!